Impeachment. It's the constitutional way to swipe left on a president.
Magical, wonderful road to impeachment. Who knows where it'll go?
That's probably presidential harassment.
President Trump has been accused of threatening to hold back military aid to the Ukraine if leaders there fail to investigate former Vice President Joe Biden.
The president pushed 8 times for an investigation into Joe Biden. At the time of the call, the Trump administration was withholding $250 million in military aid to Ukraine that Congress had already approved.
Yeah, this is huge. Donald Trump is accused of holding back military aid approved by Congress for Ukraine unless they helped him dig up dirt on Joe Biden, which, if true, would be devastating. It's an abuse of power, it's extortion, and maybe worst of all, it's asking a foreign country to meddle in America's election. Yeah, which is the one thing that if you were Donald Trump, you should stay away from, right? Because they'd just beaten the Russia case. It would be like if the day after Michael Jackson got acquitted of touching kids, he was like, let's celebrate, slumber party at my house. But the one silver lining of any Trump scandal is that if you just wait long enough, eventually, he'll just spill the beans himself.
The conversation I had was largely congratulatory, was largely corruption, all of the corruption taking place, was largely the fact that we don't want our people, like Vice President Biden and his son, creating to the corruption already in the Ukraine.
There was no pressure put on them whatsoever, but there was pressure put on with respect to Joe Biden. What Joe Biden did for his son, that's something they should be looking at.
Okay, we all heard that, right? Trump just said there was no pressure except for the pressure to get dirt on Biden. That's the only pressure we're talking about. On Monday, the Ukraine scandal blew up. On Tuesday, the Democrats opened an impeachment inquiry. On Wednesday, the transcript of the call came out. And today, the big news is that the secret whistleblower complaint that kicked this whole thing off has finally been released.
The House Intelligence Committee has just released the whistleblower complaint. This is the second paragraph of that complaint from the whistleblower, who says, in the course of my official duties, I have received information from multiple U.S. government officials that the President of the United States is using the power of his office to solicit interference from a foreign country in the 2020 U.S. election.
That's right. The whistleblower's complaint has accused the president of soliciting foreign interference in America's election, which is really bad for Trump. What's even worse is that this entire complaint is only 9 pages long, which means people might actually read it. Hell, if it had a few pictures, Trump himself might even read it. Trump and his defenders are saying that the whistleblower's account is fake, all right? Because they say that the whistleblower is basing all of this on secondhand information. He didn't hear the calls and he hasn't seen anything himself. They also point out that the president of Ukraine himself said yesterday that he never felt any pressure from Trump. Although, if you actually watched the Ukrainian president say it, you might come up with a different impression.
President Zelensky, have you felt any pressure from President Trump to investigate Joe Biden and Hunter Biden?
I think you read everything. So I think you read text. I'm sorry, but I don't want to be involved to democratic, open elections of USA. No, you heard that we had, I think, good phone call. It was normal. We spoke about many things, and so I think, and you read it, that nobody pushed me. Yes.
In other words, no pressure.
Okay, I don't want to contradict the president, but I don't think the translation of that was no pressure. That man seemed like he was under intense pressure. I mean, he actually said the line, I don't want to get involved. I mean, that's not a comfortable phrase you ever say when you're just comfortable. How are you feeling? I don't want to get involved. I'm so comfortable. You can't ask him that question in front of Trump. It's like asking the hostage how he's being treated while the kidnapper is right next to him. Oh, how are they treating me? Oh, it's amazing. Yeah, last night they even gave me toilet paper. I love it here. The big news today is that the White House has taken its fight with Congress to the next level. officially sending word that it will not participate in any aspect of the impeachment probe. Yeah, which is crazy. Like, Trump can't just decline to participate. Like, this is not the Vietnam War. And this new tactic threw everything for a loop. Because you see, today was meant to be the big day when Congress would hear testimony from Gordon Sondland, ambassador to the EU and Jeff Ross stunt double. But just before the C-SPAN cameras started rolling, the White House pulled the plug.
We're following breaking news this morning, and it's moving quickly. The White House blocking EU Ambassador Gordon Sondland from testifying to Congress just minutes before he was supposed to appear on Capitol Hill. He was set to testify behind closed doors as part of an ongoing impeachment inquiry into President Trump, specifically about his interactions with Ukraine. Democratic House Intelligence Chairman calling the move to keep Sondland from speaking to lawmakers, quote, strong evidence of obstruction.
At the president's behest, Sondland pulled out of this impeachment hearing, which is a big deal. Because although many people haven't heard of Gordon Sondland, it appears that everything Trump wanted from Ukraine went through him.
Even before President Trump spoke to the president of Ukraine, Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the EU, had been pushing the Ukrainians to commit to investigations Mr. Trump wanted.
And the reason Congress is so intent on having Sondland testify isn't just because he was at the center of this Ukraine scandal, right? It's also because he has text messages that show what was going on behind the scenes.
Text messages given to Congress show Sondland and another diplomat discussing a possible link between investigations and aid to Ukraine.
On September 9th, Bill Taylor, the top U.S. diplomat to Ukraine, texts, "I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with a political campaign." Sondland responds, "I believe you are incorrect about President Trump's intentions. The president has been crystal clear, no quid pro quos of any kind," adding, "I suggest we stop the back and forth by text."
Taylor texts Gordon Sondland, "Are we now saying that security assistance and White House meeting are conditioned on investigations?" Sondland responds, "Call me."
Okay, I don't know if these guys are guilty or not, but you have to admit those texts look hella suspicious. Yeah, because the only time you say, stop texting, let's talk on the phone, is when something shady is going down, right? It's 2019. No one talks on the phone. The only reason to talk on the phone at all is to wish your grandmother a happy birthday or to commit crimes. Or to commit crimes with your grandmother on her birthday. Now, for the first day of the public hearings, the Democrats chose to call two witnesses, Bill Taylor, the acting ambassador to Ukraine, and George Kent, senior State Department official and townsperson in a 1950s musical.
Once I arrived in Kyiv, I discovered a weird combination of encouraging, confusing, and ultimately alarming circumstances. According to Mr. Morrison, President Trump did insist that President Zelensky go to a microphone and say he is opening investigations of Biden and 2016 election interference. Ambassador Sondland tried to explain to me that President Trump is a businessman. When a businessman is about to sign a check to someone who owes him something, the businessman asks that person to pay up before signing the check. I think it's crazy to withhold security assistance for help with the political campaign.
What did you mean when you said you thought it was crazy?
It was illogical. It could not be explained. It was crazy.
Unexplainable, illogical, crazy. That's the description Bill Taylor gave of Trump's actions. It's also the title of Trump's new memoir. Same thing, yes. It's my full story, and it's a coloring book, folks. You're gonna love it. When it was Congressman Jim Jordan's turn to ask questions, his big argument was that none of this testimony should count because it was all a game of telephone.
You weren't on the call, were you? The president, you didn't listen on President Trump's call and President Zelensky's call?
I did not.
You've never talked with Chief of Staff Mulvaney?
I never did.
You never met the president?
That's correct.
This is what I can't believe, and you're their star witness. You're their first witness.
Mr.
You're
Jordan,
the guy. You're the guy based on this, based on, I mean, I've seen church prayer chains that are easier to understand than this.
That's a good point. Good point, Jim Jordan. These guys don't have firsthand knowledge of what Trump was doing with Ukraine. So why are they the ones testifying? I mean, maybe it's because the White House has blocked all the people who do have firsthand knowledge from testifying. That's a good point, Trevor. That's a good point. Thank you, me. All of today, Jim Jordan's only focus was making it seem like this entire process was somehow a sham. But it all backfired when he tried to turn the focus to the whistleblower.
Now, there is one witness that they won't bring in front of us, They won't bring in front of the American people. And that's the guy who started it all, the whistleblower. Nope.
I say to my colleague, I'd be glad to have the person who started it all come in and testify. President Trump is welcome to take a seat right there.
This congressional hearing was filmed in front of a live studio audience. You know, by Congress standards, that was a pretty good slam. Yeah. The only way it could have been better is if the congressman was like, seriously, President Trump is welcome anytime. In fact, I've actually got his invite right here. And this testimony was a pretty big deal because for the first time, the American public heard from nonpartisan officials about how the president abused his powers for personal gain. And even though millions of people have been talking about these hearings, over on Fox News, their analysis of this impeachment is meh.
There is not a single person outside the Washington, D.C. Beltway that gives a damn about what happened today. It's boring.
It was a total snooze fest. It was kind of boring to watch on television.
It was really just a huge dud.
There wasn't anything sexy about it. There was not some big new piece of information that came out.
With Richard Nixon, there was a break-in. With Bill Clinton, there was sex in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
With Trump, it's a phone call to Ukraine.
There's no burglary, there's no break-in, there's no tapes, there's no dress, there's no sex.
It's not a sexy scandal. Russia was sexy. This has no intrigue whatsoever.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. You're saying Trump's impeachment is boring and unsexy? You know, if Trump hears that, it's going to piss him off, right? He's going to come out like, my impeachment will be the most exciting ever. I'll break into a hotel, and best believe I'll jizz all over this dress. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. I'll do it.
Trevor, this whole thing has me so mad. Look, if these allegations are true, then our president, and forgive me for using the N-word here, is a complete nincompoop.
Oh, you had me nervous for a second. Yeah, I agree. I think everyone is angry that the president abused his power like this.
Okay, take it easy, Maddow. I'm mad because our dipshit president can't even get impeached right. He's wasting his one impeachment on taking down Joe Biden. Joe Biden will take down Joe Biden. The guy's already gaffed himself out of 2 elections. Look, when it comes to Biden, all you have to do is just wait it out and it'll go away. You know, he's like a cold or my parole officer. That guy is so obsessed with me.
Actually, I think that's legal. So wait, Desi, you don't think Trump abused his power?
Well, no, if anything, he didn't abuse it enough. Look, you only get one impeachment. You gotta make it count. Presidents used to understand that. Andrew Johnson defied Congress. Richard Nixon had the Saturday Night Massacre. Bill Clinton got a BJ in the Oval Office. Head, mouth candy, the old Pac-Man.
Pac-Man?
Yeah, you know.
Okay, I get it. I get it.
Okay, all right.
I get it.
Look, okay. My point is, Trevor, Trump has blown it. He might get impeached for gossiping on the phone like a little bitch.
During the impeachment hearings last week, you may remember we learned about a call at a restaurant between Trump and an EU ambassador, Gordon Sondland. Well, now, a diplomat who overheard that call is spilling all the beans to Congress.
Quote, while Ambassador Sondland's phone was not on speakerphone, I could hear the president's voice through the earpiece of the phone. I then heard President Trump ask, so he's going to do the investigation? Ambassador Sondland replied that he's going to do it, adding that President Zelensky will do anything you ask him to. President's voice was very loud and recognizable, and Ambassador Sondland held the phone away from his ear for a period of time.
Yeah, that's right. David Holmes testified to Congress that he overheard a call where Trump explicitly asked for Ukraine to dig up dirt on Joe Biden. And the diplomat overheard this conversation not because Trump was on speakerphone, but because Trump is a human speakerphone. And he's like, I'm calling about the criminal conspiracy. You know what? I can't hear you. Let's switch to speaker. I'm calling about the criminal conspiracy. There are a lot of damning details in this testimony, but my favorite part was when Sondland talked about just how much the president of Ukraine was willing to help Trump.
I heard President Trump then clarify Ambassador Sondland was in Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland replied, yes, he was in Ukraine, went on to state, President Zelensky loves your ass.
Oh, okay. Zelensky loves Trump's ass. A few days ago, Fox News was saying impeachment wasn't sexy enough. Now we got ass play. This morning, impeachment took yet another major step forward when Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, and sober Lucille Bluth gathered up all the flags she could find for a major announcement.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announcing to the country and to the world that articles of impeachment against President Trump will proceed. Pelosi telling the American people that Trump has left the U.S. Congress with no choice but to move forward.
Sadly, but with confidence and humility, with allegiance to our founders and a heart full of love for America. Today, I am asking our chairman to proceed with articles of impeachment.
Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. They finally proposed articles of impeachment. I mean, I knew when they reserved that hearing room that this would be it, but you never know until it really happens. Oh my God, I'm so happy for you guys. And I know this sounds weird, but I'm actually proud of Donald Trump. Yeah, because he's getting impeached, but I didn't think he would make it 3 years. I'm not gonna lie. Like, Trump getting this far into his presidency without being impeached is a lot like when a dog accidentally drives a car into a tree. Yeah, the dog crashed, but he made it like 8 blocks. That's impressive. I don't even know how he put it into drive. He barely knows letters. Now, there was a big debate within the Democratic Party about how many articles of impeachment to bring against Donald Trump. But in the end, they decided to strike with surgical precision.
President Trump now facing 2 charges as the top Democrats of the key committees stood together to announce it all this morning. Abuse of power and obstruction of Congress.
Democrats have decided to narrow the scope of impeachment to the 2 articles of impeachment that they believe are the easiest to prove and backed up by the most evidence.
Because we are operating in a universe where Republicans are challenging some of the most basic facts. Democrats want to make this case as airtight as possible.
Yes, only 2 articles of impeachment: abuse of power and obstruction of Congress, which means the Democrats are showing a lot of restraint because, I mean, let's be honest, Trump has done enough crazy shit to merit 2,000 articles of impeachment. Yeah, there was obstruction of justice from the Mueller report, using the presidency to enrich his businesses, the porn star payoffs, flag molestation, the time he looked directly into an eclipse, and of course, having Don Jr. I mean, that's impeachment on its own. So, the good news for Trump is that he's only facing 2 charges. Although in a way, that's also kind of sad for him, because Nixon had 3 articles brought against him, Bill Clinton had 4, and Andrew Johnson had 11, which means Trump will have the smallest impeachment of all time. You know that's gonna make him insecure. He's gonna be like, it's not about the size of impeachment, it's about the friction of the conviction.
President Trump set to become the 3rd president in American history to be impeached.
This is a moment that will go down in history.
This will be written about in the history books.
This is going to go down in the history books.
The 45th president of the United States got impeached. Well, you guys might be cheering, but when Democrats in the House tried to cheer last night, Nancy Pelosi shut it down real fast.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi maintaining control of her caucus with a glance and a gesture alone at one point yesterday.
On this vote, the yeas are 230, the nays are 197, present is 1. Article 1 is adopted. The question.
Damn. Nancy didn't want to hear any gloating last night. She killed that celebration quick. Did you see that? That kind of look would send a champagne cork back into the bottle. That's how intense that was. It was like, pop, whoop. So there's no doubt that impeachment will hurt Trump's legacy bigly. But it also seems like it's hurting his feelings.
President Trump incensed, lashing out in a scathing 6-page letter to the House Speaker, calling the impeachment process outlined by the Constitution an illegal partisan attempted coup.
He's just fired off a tweet. Can you believe that I will be impeached today by the radical left? Do nothing Democrats, and I did nothing wrong. A terrible thing. Read the transcripts. This should never happen to another president again. Say a prayer.
Yo, is it just me? Or does it seem like Trump went through all the stages of grief in one tweet? It was like denial. I can't believe I'm getting impeached. Anger. I did nothing wrong. Depression. This is a terrible thing. Acceptance. I guess we can only pray.